Hey guys, so I've been gone a long time, I know, life. I actually had to get a hip replacement and health issues and all that jazz. I might make a video about it, might not, who knows. But today we aren't talking about that. Today we are talking about the Cecil Hotel and the case of Elisa Lam. So I'm going to be breaking up this video in different sections. So the first section is going to be the Cecil Hotel, so the history of the hotel, and then Elisa Lam, like her history, and then the case, and then theories. So first we're going to be talking about the Cecil Hotel. So the Cecil Hotel is actually currently, now it was renamed to the Stay on Main, located in Los Angeles, California. When you first look up the hotel, the first thing that actually comes up is Elisa Lam. Like, the two names are very commonly connected, which is partly why I believe they changed their name to the Stay on Main to try and get away from all the bad history of the hotel. But the Cecil Hotel was built in 1924 and it was supposed to be this big extravagant thing. It was a budget hotel and it had 700 rooms and 15 floors. And then as of 2017 they renovated it, so now it also has it's also hotels, and then it also has like residential units that you can rent out, so more like an apartment complex type deal. So when the hotel was originally built, they spent $2.5 million on the hotel, and they the owners originally meant for it to be for like elite people and businessmen and all of like celebrities that would come and stay at the hotel, which where it was built, a lot of things similar to like that theme was in like up and coming, like it was a big thing, so they thought that they'd be very successful where they built the hotel. So the hotel itself, it has like a bunch of stained glass windows, and you come in and there's palm trees, and the main lobby is all marble, and there's like these big extravagant staircases. Like it was meant to be very big and important, but unfortunately a few years after they built the hotel, the Great Depression set in, so that really, well, no one did Great Depression, so that really affected their income and their who was coming in and out and staying at the hotel at the time. And then the area that the hotel was built in slowly became known as Skid Row. So then most of the people who were occupying the Cecil Hotel were transients, like drug addicts, prostitutes, transients, homeless people. It just, the whole theme went from extravagant businessmen and celebrities to like the underside of society. In 2017, the hotel was actually deemed a historical cultural monument just because it was very representative of the early 20th century American hotel like theme, vibe, aesthetic. And because of the architectural body of it was very historic, so they wanted to try and keep that. So the Cecil Hotel can also be seen in a lot of cultural references. Like for instance, this hotel is seen in the background of two music videos, U2's The Streets Have No Names and Blink-182 The Rock Show. Both of those music videos, you can see the Cecil in the background of the music video. So the Cecil Hotel is also the inspiration of American Horror Story Season 5 Hotel, which if you haven't seen, I haven't seen the whole season, but the episodes I have seen were pretty good. That show's pretty good. Personally, my favorite season is the first season, but maybe I'll watch that show after this. So throughout history, a lot more violence and death and crime started occurring at the Cecil, and so many people actually have committed suicide there that residents and people who lived in the area started referring to Cecil as the suicide. In the 1960s, it started being referred to as the suicide just because of how many people were committing suicide in this building. So the first documented suicide at the Cecil was actually in 1931 when a guest named K.W. Norton died in his room after taking a poison capsule. In 1962, 65-year-old George Giannani was actually killed when Pauline Otten, who was 27 at the time, she jumped out of a window of the Cecil and actually landed on him, killing them both in the process. And some police actually thought that they both jumped out at the same time until they realized that he wasn't wearing any shoes, and apparently if he would have jumped out the window, his shoes would have came off as well. So he was wearing shoes, and he wouldn't have been wearing shoes if he jumped out of the window. So I'm assuming Pauline was not wearing shoes. Then in 1944, a 19-year-old woman named Dorothy Jean Purcell, she woke up in the middle of the night with bad cramps, and she went into the bathroom and ended up giving birth to a baby in the bathtub. She didn't even know she was pregnant, and she ended up throwing the baby out of the window because she thought it was stillborn. And I believe that the coroner was able to determine that the baby was actually alive, and when it was thrown out the window. So she was so Dorothy was actually charged with murder for reasons of insanity, and was sent to a place where she could get psychiatric treatment for that. It's also been said that in 1947, Elizabeth Short, or the Black Dahlia, was rumored to have stayed there, or at least been in the dining bar area multiple times. So there was mixed reports on either if she was staying there or if she just visited there a lot. But shortly before her death, there are rumors that she was at the Cecil Hotel as well. And if you don't know who the Black Dahlia is, I do plan on making a video about that. So give it a thumbs up if you want to see that. So in the 1980s, Richard Ramirez, otherwise known as the Night Stalker, was also staying at the Cecil Hotel. So he stayed at the hotel for a few weeks, and his room was one of the rooms on the top floor. And he was actually killing a bunch of people while he was staying at the hotel. So he would commit his crimes, a lot of which he committed on Skid Row. He would commit his crimes, and then when he would come back, he would discard his dirty and bloody clothes in the Cecil dumpster, and then just walk either just in his underwear or completely naked back up to his room. And just, it didn't faze anyone because of just how the environment of the hotel was at the time. They're like, okay, just another naked dude in public, I guess. Then in 1991, Jack Unterweger, who was an Austrian murderer, his idol was actually the Night Stalker. So he stayed at the Cecil because he knew the Night Stalker stayed there. So he stayed at the Cecil, and he had killed at least 3 sex workers, strangled and killed at least 3 sex workers while he was staying at the Cecil. He eventually went back to Austria. And actually hanged himself before he was convicted of anything. I'm sorry, hanged himself right after he was convicted. So now, present day, the Cecil Hotel is now known as the Stand Main. I believe all the signs and stuff have changed now, but it took a while for them to actually change the signs from the Cecil Hotel the Hotel Cecil to the Stand Main. Even though they have changed the name, it doesn't, a lot of people, just take one Google search and people can easily find out the history of it. So now we're gonna move on to Elisa Lam. So Elisa Lam was born on April 30th in 1991 in Vancouver, British Columbia. Her parents were immigrants that now they owned a restaurant in British Columbia, Canada. So at the time of this case, Elisa was 21, and she was currently taking some time off of school and going to America and traveling up and down the West Coast. So she was staying in LA and that area. And so she was to stay at the Cecil Hotel for about a week or 2 weeks, I believe. And while she was on this trip, she would call her parents every single day to check in. She also was very avid on her social media sites, mainly Tumblr and her blog, but she did have other social media sites. They just weren't as used as much as her Tumblr or her blog. So most of her social media presence was focused on blogging about fashion, just her life in general. She was battling with depression at the time, so a lot of her posts were talking about that, how she was dealing with that, what she was going through, how she was going to handle things. So when you open her Tumblr, the little bio banner underneath it is actually a little eerie to read after the fact, but I do like it. And her quote is, "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life," by Chuck Palahniuk, which, from what I've gathered about her, I think that quote fit her really well, because she seemed to be like a go-getter. Like, she was 21, traveling in a different country by herself. She can't be really more adventurous than that. When you open her Tumblr, you can't actually see any of her posts. You just see the name and the bio, but there are screenshots, and other people have like archived some of her Tumblr posts. So I also found her Instagram, which was actually really cute. Her little bio on Instagram said "Nom Nom Nutella," which I just think is cute. And a lot of her posts, she only posted in 2012. So she made the account in 2012 and she stopped posting in 2012. And a lot of her posts fit that 2012 era when you would put like 82 filters on one picture. But her posts were also pretty aesthetically pleasing. There was a lot of like fashion and coffee mugs and like skylines of like the city. So her last post on Instagram was actually on December 21st. And in 2012, and it's a picture of the city skyline. I couldn't tell where it was taken, but it kind of looked like she maybe was in like a parking garage and kind of like took a picture of the skyline or something. But the caption, she captioned it, "Because it stops for no one, time is constant and I must move with it," which I got the vibe from a lot of her social media that she was like very like a go-getter. Like, time is very short and I need to do as much as I can with the time that I have. She also had a Twitter that wasn't used as much either. It only had about 166 tweets. Also, I believe it was just in the 2012 time era. So her Twitter, she actually had tweeted into 2013. On January 14th, 2013, she tweeted, "As I get older and have a more disposable income, I dress more like a little English schoolboy." And I just like that you're able to go on her social media and like you can kind of understand what kind of a person she was, and she seemed very like a very cool person. Like, I feel like, granted, I was not 21 in 2013, but I'm 22 now, and I feel like if the two of us would have met at the same age, maybe we could have been friends, or at least had a good talk. So another common theme on her social media is she often shared that she had insomnia, and I was not sure if she had insomnia in the time that this case takes place, but at least in 2012, when all her social media platforms were most active, she often posted a lot about insomnia. She also went by the username like capital L period capital L, and I don't know if it means something or she just liked it, because I know like Elisa Lam, Elisa starts with an E, but it sounds like it starts with an L, so at least like Elisa Lam maybe, I'm not sure, but I found it cute. Thought it was cute. It's cute to have like a little like username on all your social, like I have a pretty consistent username that I use on most of my platforms, so it's not really too hard to figure out if it's me or not. So if it was something like that, then I don't know, I just thought I'd share that, because not a lot of people talk about anything besides her Tumblr, and so I wanted to try and bring her more to life. I am going to be having her social medias, the usernames down below if you want to check them out. Something about Tumblr, and this could be kind of seen as a cautionary tale, but she was posting a lot about where she was going next, what she was doing, which I feel like a lot of us do that, but she was apparently doing it very like, this is where I am now, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm going to do next, and that could potentially be what maybe could have helped her get into the circumstances she ended up getting into, but we can get more into that in this series. Elisa was staying at the Cecil hotel for 2 weeks, and she originally was supposed to be staying in this like hostel type thing, so basically she would be sharing a room with several other people. But after 2 days of her roommates complaining to the hotel manager that Elisa was displaying a lot of odd behavior and was just acting strange, the hotel actually moved her to her own private room on the 4th floor. So the shared room would have been on the 5th floor, and so her new private room was on the 4th floor. So Elisa was diagnosed with depression, and she was recently diagnosed with bipolar disorder right before she took this trip. I say right before, I'm not exactly sure how before it was, like if it was like a month before or a year before, but it was shortly before she took this big trip that she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And so she was on several different medications for them to deal with the depression and the bipolar. There is a possibility, we can get more into this for the series, but there is a possibility that because she was 21, she was around the age that schizophrenia sets in if you aren't, if you don't get it in childhood. Usually most cases of schizophrenia start around the ages of 21, 22, like early 20s. So when we go more into detail about the circumstances of the case, I can get more into that, but there's some theories that she maybe was showing signs of schizophrenia, which would have explained some of her odd behavior, but that we won't ever know. So now we're going to get into the actual case. So on January 31st, Elisa Lam's parents haven't heard from her in like a few days, so they called the LAPD and basically asked for kind of like a wellness check. And they're like, hey, my daughter, she hasn't gotten back to us in a few days, she's traveling over abroad, if you could help us. So while the police went to the hotel, her parents actually got on a plane like right away and came over to LA to help look for her. So the police, they were able to look in her room, and they looked as much around the hotel as much as they legally could, because they couldn't actually look in all the individual rooms because you would need probable cause, suspicion that something was going on, and or a warrant, which a warrant you would also need probable cause, suspicion, all that. So they didn't check the entire hotel top to bottom, but they did as much as they legally could. And it's important to note that they did supposedly go up to the roof, and they had search dogs this entire time. They went up to the roof and they searched the roof and nothing, so they went back down into the hotel. So on February 13th, the police still didn't have anything to go on, so they actually released some footage of the last footage we have of Elisa. And after this was released, the internet kind of just took it and ran with it. This really made her case blow up because the footage is very strange, and there's some people say you can tell that there's a time skip, and that the footage was actually edited a little bit, and then like stuff is cut out and then it's put back together, and then they released the video. There is so I'm going to show you guys the video. But it basically shows Elisa getting onto the elevator. And when she first gets on the elevator, she looks calm, like just normal everyday getting on the elevator, going somewhere that's not here. So she gets on the elevator, and then she starts pressing a bunch of buttons and nothing happens. So she kind of steps out really quick and then steps back in, and then it looks like she's hiding, and then she gets out again, she gets back in, she's pressing more buttons, and she's starting to look more and more frantic. The part that mostly creeps me out, the footage can be seen as normal, but there is one part that kind of freaks me out where her hands kind of go like this, and it looks like she's we don't know, but she's like going like this, and then it kind of looks like she has like a Rubik's Cube that she's like trying to solve, and then also looks like she's talking to someone who is not in the view of the camera that we can't see, will be it someone like outside the view of the camera or someone who's like invisible or something. So we don't know if just something was actually happening or if she was having some kind of hallucination due to her bipolar or possible maybe schizophrenia because of the age she was at. There's more theory. I can go more in detail in the theories. I keep saying that. I did find on Reddit, Reddit I know isn't the most reliable, but it was to go in and look for theories, and someone said that the way she was acting could have been like a panic attack, like the way she was moving her hands up could have been she was having a panic attack. What triggered the attack, we don't know, if it was that, but that's also something it could have been. So after the video was released, the hotel started getting complaints from the guests that the water pressure was off in the hotel, and then also the water, when they would turn it on, it was dark, almost black for a few minutes, and then the water would just be darker than usual and kind of tasted funny. And so after a few complaints, the hotel finally sent a maintenance man to go check on this. Now, this man had to ride an elevator up 15 floors, and then he had to walk up 1 or 2 like flights upstairs until he got to the door that opened up onto the roof. And the door had a keypad. It was either a keypad that required like a code to type in, or you need like a key like scanner swipe thing to get in, which only very certain people had. I think only like 2 people in the hotel had that access card to the roof. So he gets on the roof and he goes and he needs to get a ladder to get and look in the water tank. And when he opens the water tank, that is when he finds the body of Elisa Lam. So it is the morning of February 19th, 2013 that the body of Elisa Lam is found in a 1,000-gallon water tank on top of the Cecil Hotel. She's found naked. She's found naked, and her clothes and belongings are in the tank with her, just kind of floating around with her. and it's noted that her and her belongings are found covered in this sand, hair, fiber like stuff that no one really knows what it is or where it came from or why it's on her. So the water tank that she was found in was actually providing water to several of the guest rooms, a kitchen in the hotel, and a coffee shop that was in the hotel. So a lot of people were consuming this water that she had been sitting in decomposing for 2 to 3 weeks. So I say 2 to 3 weeks because I got very conflicting reports. Some say she's only in there for 19 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it's just all over. So 2 to 3 weeks she was in that tank, and they actually couldn't get her out of the tank. They had to cut open the side of the tank and get her out that way because they weren't able to go in through the hatch with the equipment they needed and get her and another human out. So they had to actually cut open the tank to get to her. So the clothes that were found with her were the same clothes that were on her in the elevator footage. So she was wearing a pair of black shorts that are a size men's medium, and some people thought it was a skirt, but because they're baggy, but if you look you can tell they're shorts and they're a size men's medium, which wasn't her size. She was very small. I believe she was 5'4" or 5, between 5'4" and 5'6" and she was about 120 something pounds. So she was a very small person. But she was wearing the black medium men's shorts, a large green t-shirt, a pair of black underwear, a pair of black polka dot sandals, and an extra small red sweatshirt. So all of this, all these clothes that were seen on the footage is also found with her in the water tank, and her parents did say that these clothes were not her clothes. They don't know where she got these clothes from because they were not hers. So her body didn't show any signs of sexual assault or any assault really, like there was no trauma to the body, both externally or internally. Most of the stuff that was seen was common to after a body had been sitting in water for a few days. So there was nothing out of the ordinary about her autopsy report. Everything was fine. They also didn't find any drugs or alcohol in her system. So the coroner ended up stating that the cause of death was accidental drowning, with bipolar being a significant factor. So basically they're saying she was having some kind of episode and that got her in the tank somehow and she drowned. And also on the coroner report, it was documented that her and her belongings were found with that sand or hair-like particle. And it says, quote, all of the items had sand-like particles attached to the fabric and loosely present in the fold of the clothes and on the drying mat. I'm also going to be linking a link to the autopsy report in the description. I read through it, and again, nothing was out of the ordinary. The only thing that I could find was like damage to the lungs, and I had to look up what some of the words meant, but basically what I think it was saying was basically from drowning when she was in the water. Basically the alveoluses in the lung exploded, like the cells kind of exploded due to asphyxiation, which was caused by the drowning. So that's what I think it was saying, but I'm not good at medical terminology, and I was kind of scared to look it up online. I did, but like I was scared of like what pictures would show up. I didn't see any pictures, thankfully, but there were 2 different words. I looked it up, and that's what I think it was saying happened, I think. So Elisa's phone was not present with her, wasn't with her or her belongings or anything. They never found her phone. And after she passed, her Tumblr blog kept posting a few times, and there's 2 possibilities. The more plausible one is Tumblr does have an option for you to schedule posts ahead of time, and because she was so active on her Tumblr and on her blog, it was possible that she just had posts scheduled to come out later, so it wasn't anything strange. Another possibility that some people think could have been whoever killed her took her phone and for some reason were posting on her Tumblr. There's also conflicting reports on if the hatch to get into the tank was open or closed when they found it, which clearly is going to affect the case and the theory. So depending on if the hatch was open or closed, that's going to affect which theories are plausible and which ones can be just scratched right away because of that hatch. So now we're going to be getting into the theories. So there's a report that I only found on a few sources, so I'm not sure how credible it is, but it is rumored that a police officer who was on the scene reported that when they had sniffer dogs, that the sniffer dogs led them to the fire escape, but once they got on the fire escape, they lost her scent. And if that is true, then that would prove the theory that Elisa could have gotten onto the roof by fire escape. She would have just had to climb up 10 flights of stairs, 11 flights of stairs to get onto the roof. If she didn't take the fire escape, then there's the whole question of how did she get on the roof. There's again conflicting statements on if the lock to get onto the roof was even activated. It could have just been for show, basically, like no one activated it. If that was true, then she could have just walked on. If not, then how would she have gotten through? Because like I said, you either need to know a code or you need a key card. And when the door opened, that sounded an alarm that you heard on the top 2 floors and at the receptionist front desk area, that they got the alarm that the door was open. So that was if the door even opened, not just if it opened because someone broke in or whatever. So someone would have been aware that she was on the roof. Okay, so there are some theories. One theory is that she got in the tank herself on purpose to commit suicide. And this is basically what the police ran with and what a lot of people think is probably the most likely. The problem is, or whether it be she got in the tank to commit suicide, or if she was having some kind of psychotic break and she was hallucinating, or she wasn't all there somehow and got in the tank for some other reason and ended up dying that way. Whatever the reason, it was the main consensus is that she put herself in there. The problem is the hatch. If the hatch was closed, it's about 20 pounds, and so we don't think she could have opened a 20 pound hatch and gotten in. And then depending on how she would have opened it, if she opened it all the way, the hatch clearly would have been open when they went and checked. She wouldn't have been able to close the hatch because I don't think the water, I mean, I don't know how water tanks work, but I don't think the water is like all the way up to the thing. You have to like jump down a little bit, like there's space between where the water starts and where the tank actually ends. Even then, like how would she be able to close it? But there is another possibility that if she wasn't able to open the hatch all the way, that she opened it just enough that she could get in, and then because it wasn't open all the way, the hatch closed after her once she got in. The problem with this though, wouldn't that leave any marks on her body? Like wouldn't she scratch herself somewhere, or like have a bruise or something? Like the way I'm picturing it happening in my head, I'm like she's hovering the hatch open, she's getting in, but when the hatch closed, wouldn't that like scratch her or bruise her or do something to her body? And she didn't have any external injuries reported on the autopsy report. Now, this is all without even thinking about how she even got up on top of the water tank to begin with, because you need a ladder to get up there. It's about 10 feet, I believe, to get to the top of the tank. Like maintenance, when they work on the tanks and stuff, they need a ladder to get up to the hatch. So either, this is where more theories come in, either someone neglectfully left a ladder up there and she was able to get in and use that, and then maybe someone came up and was like, oh, this shouldn't be here, and moved the ladder without checking, or someone brought her to the roof and they had the ladder, and when she was in the tank they took the ladder with them when they left. So there's another theory that I haven't seen if any videos talk about, but I have seen some theories. I think it was on Reddit. This this person posted about how there's another possibility how she could have gotten onto the water tank. And if you look at pictures of the roof, there's this red ladder that's like on the side of the building that goes up to another platform. So there's this, I think it's like the maintenance room or something. It's some kind of room that is connected to the water tank. So the tanks are outside, and then there's like this little like house kind of, and it's possible that she could have gotten on top of that house and then jumped from there onto the tank. This again doesn't prove if the tank hatch was open or closed, and again, that my whole theory on if it was closed, then how she could have possibly gotten in without leaving it open, or again, if someone was helping her, they also could have been on the roof with her, jumped on the tank with her, opened and closed the hatch for her. And again, there's I just would think that if you're jumping from a roof to a metal thing, like, first, what's the likelihood you're gonna stay on? Like, you have to aim to jump right, and then second, would that leave any scratches or bruising or anything, even if she just stumbled a little bit? Again, it could be possibly just hard to determine based on the state her body was found in, but or maybe just none of this leaves marks on a healthy person, and I'm just very, very not healthy. The idea that she was either alone or someone helped her. Going into if someone helped her, then there's also more subcategories of that. It could have been someone who was trying to murder her, or someone who was helping her commit suicide, and or someone who was having a psychotic break from reality, just like she was, and both of them were not realizing what was happening. Her clothes were found off of her, but in the water tank. So that maybe points to the possibility of a murder, because a lot of killers have a habit of taking the clothes off their victims, even if no assault is actually taking place. It's just like a thing for them. So that could have been like she was stripped, put in a tank, and then her clothes were thrown in with the tank, or she stripped if she was having some kind of psychotic episode or a reaction to drugs or something. She could have taken the clothes off herself for some reason, and either threw them in the tank with her, or she took them off while she was in the tank. There's another theory that she took her clothes off while she was in the tank because they were weighing her down, because they were heavy, so she was trying to like stay floating, so she took her clothes off, which makes sense. So the main theory that, like I said, that the police are going with is that she killed herself, be it on purpose or accidental, and that she could have been having some kind of psychotic break, whether related to her bipolar, or as I mentioned earlier, it could have very possibly been schizophrenia, very small possibility, or it could have been she's having a reaction to something. She was on 4 different drugs at the time, but not all 4 of those drugs were found in her system when they did the autopsy. No other drugs were found either, so that kind of puts a dent on if she was on any kind of like fun drug or anything like that. But there's also a possibility that she could have been on something that they either didn't test for, or by the time they found her body, it was out of her system somehow. There's also someone said it could have been alcohol, like she reacted to, she had some alcohol and it reacted this way to her medication, but there wasn't hardly any, if any, alcohol found in her system on the autopsy report. But it could have been a possibility, because a lot of people, if you mix their medication with alcohol, have different reactions, and it could have been something as extreme as this. It also could have been because she was found with not all of her drugs, all of her medication in her system. It could have just been she skipped a dose on a very like important medication, and it just caused this episode to happen. So this theory relates back to her Tumblr post. So because she posted so much on Tumblr and social media about where she was going, what she was doing, where she was staying, all that, it could have been that someone actually that someone was actually following her that way. Like they knew where she would be, what she was doing, so they were able to kind of stalk her in a way, and that led to someone either putting her in the tank, or she was trying to get away from them and ended up in the tank. So I have one more theory before we get to more of the like out there theories, but this theory is that maybe the LAPD and or the hospital for some reason are covering something up, whether it be not hospital, hotel, whether it be LAPD or the hotel are covering something up, and so that someone who works at the hotel or someone who works in LAPD for some reason had something to do with her demise, and so that all the sketchy police work and the weird footage and everything was just put together because they were trying to cover something else up. To go along with covering something else up, there's also the idea that at the time she was staying in LA, there was a tuberculosis outbreak going on, and the treatment or the medication or drug that they were using for that was called Lam Elisa, which is very weird, and it spelled the exact same way, just backwards, so that's very unsettling. It could have absolutely nothing to do with this, or it could be there's a theory that Elisa Lam never existed in the first place, that they made her up just so when people would search up Lam Elisa or Elisa Lam for the drug for the tuberculosis, her case would come up. I believe in this one the least, because at least from what I've seen, she seemed like a real person. Like you can't like they went through a lot of trouble to create a fake person if that's what they did, and I think it's disrespectful for her to her family to say that she didn't exist in the first place. Another theory is that there is some long-term resident of the Cecil Hotel who is a serial killer, and that everyone who has died in the hotel is somehow tied in with this serial killer, who have been able to evade police this entire time over centuries. This person who brought up this theory was focusing on the fact that the Black Dahlia had dark hair and I believe was the same height and stature of Elisa Lam, who also had dark hair, and several other people who have died in a hotel who had dark hair and died in questionable circumstances. The probably biggest and most believed theory is that besides the first one I stated, that she somehow got in a tank herself, the most paranormal theory is that she was actually playing the elevator game, and in the elevator game you press the buttons in a specific order, and then I believe it's on the 5th floor, so like you're on the 1st floor, you go to like, I don't know, the place you do it needs to have 15 floors, and you need to go in a certain order, and then around the 5th floor, I can't remember if this is towards the end of the game or more in the middle, but the lady is supposed to step onto the elevator, and you're not supposed to look at her or acknowledge her in any way, and if you do, she'll take you where we don't know. And basically the whole point is by the end of the game, the door is going to open up and you're going to be in an alternate reality. And it's going to look just like your reality, just darker, like all the lights are going to be off. And there's going to be like this red glowing cross in the background. And then that's it. Like, that's all you get. You just go to an alternate reality. I personally do not understand why anyone would want to go there, because it does not sound fun. It doesn't sound like flying cars and laser guns. It sounds like the Upside Down. So it's a game that's based in Korea, I believe, and so there's a lot of people think maybe she was playing that game, and that maybe some of her actions, the buttons, and stuff that we see our reality, but maybe she was seeing an alternate reality, and that's why she was so scared. And maybe she got in the tank to either get away from someone in the alternate reality, or in the alternate reality it wasn't a water tank, or something like that. Another thing that could explain why she was pressing all the buttons and why she was so close to the panel when she hit the button is, one, she wore glasses, and I don't think she was wearing glasses in the video, so it was possible that she just couldn't see and was just hitting buttons. And like she had to look so close to the thing because she couldn't see what she was hitting. She also, if she was hiding from someone, could have been hitting all the buttons so they wouldn't know which floor she got off on. Which, if she would have, either of these two, there's a third one where she could have just been doing it all for fun. Like, I know as a kid, like, you want to hit all the buttons because it's fun. I mean, have you seen Elf? It's like a Christmas tree, and that she did that, and she's just doing it for fun, and that all of these three theories are backed up by maybe her action. She's freaking out because the elevator isn't working and she thinks she broke it, be it because the first or third option, where she was just kind of having a regular day and, oh my god, I broke an elevator, or like she needed to get somewhere and the elevator's broken and she was stressing out, or she was hiding with someone and the elevator wasn't working, and that's what was making her freak out, was because the elevator wasn't working and she needed to go. A lot of theories actually rely on more of a paranormal aspect, be it that she is talking to someone that we can't see because they're invisible, or they're from something kind of like the Upside Down and she was surrounded by like demigorgons or something, or she there's another theory that she tweeted something about an invisibility cloak, and the creators of the invisibility cloak had to eliminate her to keep that a secret. But that doesn't make any sense because other people have retweeted that tweet, and as far as we know, they're still alive, and that was probably just nothing. But all of the paranormal aspects of this, or all the paranormal theories, are based mostly on the fact that her body and her clothes were found with that sand and or hair like particle stuff. The autopsy that I read said sand, but I read a lot of other things that said it was more like a hair or fiber like stuff. So those theories run off of that she was covered in some weird substance, and that was because she was interacting with something that is not of this world, that she was interacting with things that we physically couldn't see but maybe she could see, which this could also tie into two things. One, either she was seeing something we couldn't see because, again, she was in like a different dimension, or two, and more believable, she was interacting with something that we couldn't see because she was hallucinating. That she was having an episode and she was seeing things that were not really there, hearing things that weren't really there, thoughts were being put into her head that she was in danger, and that caused her to act the way she did. So those are all the theories we have. Tell me in the comments which ones you think are probably the most believable. Personally, I'm all for paranormal stuff. I love paranormal stuff, supernatural stuff, the occult, that kind of stuff. But I honestly think this one is probably just, she was just having either a bad reaction to her medication, or because she didn't take all her medication, and was having some kind of bipolar episode, and or schizophrenic episode. I'm not that educated on bipolar, but I know a little bit about schizophrenia, so that's why I keep adding that in there, because I don't know, and we won't know because those things can't really be tested unless you're alive. But so I think she probably, if she put herself in the tank, it would probably be because of one of those, and that she got in the way I explained, that she didn't open the hatch all the way and that it closed after her, or someone helped her, be it because they were murdering her, or they were helping her because they also were not all there and thought that this was what they needed to do, and that's why the hatch was open or closed, because that's the main thing. Is we don't know 100% if the hatch was open or closed when they found her, because that obviously is going to affect all the other stuff. So yeah, that is all I have on the Cecil Hotel in the case of Elisa Lam. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, tell me below what theory you think it was, and then also don't hesitate to tell me any other cases or any videos in general that you want to see from me. With all that, make sure you follow me on all my social medias. Those will be linked in the description, along with Elisa's social medias, if you wanted to check those out. And I think that is everything, and with that, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day.